Hello and welcome to my first Eagles-only mock draft of the 2025 offseason. I'm Fran Duffy, and before we get started in this mock draft, quick reminder, make sure that you are subscribed to the PHLY Sports YouTube page so you do not miss any of the future mock drafts. We've got you covered with all of your Eagles NFL draft and free agency coverage here with PHLY Eagles. Make sure you subscribe to on the link down below so you make sure you don't miss any future videos. Now, let's get into this mock draft. I went into this with a little bit of a different pathway to try and figure out who I was going to select for the Eagles. Number 32 overall, I went to our favorite mock draft simulator. I'm not going to give any free pub. I went to a mock draft simulator and I ran through this 3 or 4 times to see which players were showing up most often. Because you don't want to pick a player at 32 that's probably going to be off the board at number 20, right? So let's make sure that this is going to be as realistic as possible. And with the first pick here for the Eagles, I selected Minnesota tackle Ariante Ursery. Now, longtime followers may remember this is who I mocked to the Eagles in my first mock draft a month or so ago, early on in January. Now, Ursery, I went to the Senior Bowl. He was a little bit up and down over the course of a week of practice, but this is a guy that has experience on both sides of the line of scrimmage. He's very traitsy in terms of his athleticism, his strength and power. He's got really good flashes of his ability to win at the point of attack as a run blocker and then also in pass protection as well. So when you're looking at Ursery, the traits are there. He's a little bit unrefined. To me, sounds like the perfect pet project for Jeff Stalin and this coaching staff to be able to develop. But perhaps more importantly, I think this plays more into the depth of the class along the defensive line. As I started running through all the different scenarios, to me, the offensive line talent really dries up when you get into round 2, round 3, round 4, whereas the defensive line group, I think there's plenty of options available on the second day of the draft. And so if you've got 2 guys that are pretty similarly rated here in this area of the first round for the Eagles, I think you maybe trend towards the offensive side. Make sure you get that trench player on that side to replenish in case the Eagles lose expected and you're getting a little bit older at some certain spots. So Ariante Ursery, he is my first pick here. Let's now transition to the second round pick. That's 64th overall, and that's going to be Ohio State pass rusher JT Tuimoloau, who has been a very productive player over the course of the last 3 seasons for the championship Buckeyes. When you look at Tuimoloau, he's got the ability to win with power. He will run right through you and get to the quarterback. He's been very productive over the course of the last 3 seasons. 3-time first team all Big Ten. Now, what I like about what JTT brings to the table, he's got that ability to push the pocket, which we know is a very valuable tool for Vic Fangio. He can defend the run very well off the edge. He can be moved around a little bit. He's played on both sides, going up against left tackles and right tackles. He'll even drop in coverage at times. When you look at him athletically, you may not think of a guy that does all that well moving in reverse, but he had a couple of interceptions 2 years ago as a sophomore that really stood out to me. One against Penn State where it was a diving interception in underneath zone coverage. So he's got some of those coverage chops. And you got to remember, too, this was a legitimate D1 basketball recruit coming out of high school. He actually got offered by the University of Oregon to play hoops out west. And so this is a guy that has some natural athleticism. He's gotten better as a pass rusher. He can defend the run. He can make plays in pursuit. I think in the second round, this is a great spot for JTT, who, honestly, if you go over to my draft database, which you can find at allphly.com or any of the ALLCITY networks, you will see that I'm actually a little bit higher on Tuimoloau than most others in the industry. I've got him as a top 30, top 40 type of player. And so I think when you look here for the Eagles here late in the second round, I think this would be great value. Now, let's get to pick number 3. This is all the way at the end of the third round. I'm going to go with a player. He was available in every iteration of this mock draft exercise that I did. But to me personally, I think he's long gone by this spot. I think by the time we get to April, it will be pretty much consensus this guy's going to be a top 50 talent. But hey, in this exercise, he was available, so let's pull the trigger. Toledo defensive tackle Darius Alexander. I went to the Senior Bowl. He was one of the best players in Mobile, in person. This is a guy that can line up inside. He can line up outside. He's got the ability to win with quickness. He can win with power. He can win with technique. He can win with effort. Former teammate of Quinyon Mitchell. He kind of took over that mantle as the top Toledo Rocket on that defense this past year. Remember the connections that Nick Sirianni has with their head coach up there at Toledo. I think when you look at what this kid can bring to the table, Darius Alexander, I would expect it's going to be one of the darlings of the combine, and what he can do winning both inside and outside. It's a perfect skill set to replace what the Eagles are potentially going to lose this offseason with Milton Williams. So those are the 3 picks. You go to the first round, Ariante Ursery, the left tackle from Minnesota. You go to round 2, JT Tuimoloau, the pass rusher from Ohio State, and then defensive tackle Darius Alexander from Toledo in round 3. offensive tackle, outside linebacker, pass rusher, and then defensive tackle. To me, this is on par with the way that the Philadelphia Eagles, Howie Roseman, approach the team building process. Continue to replenish the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. We know that this is what they value. You've got a couple Senior Bowl players in there as well. The Eagles have been very active in getting players from the Senior Bowl, especially early in the draft. When you look at the rate with which they get players that participate in Mobile on days 1 and days 2, it's one of the higher rates in the entire NFL. So you get 2 of those 3 players that were down at the Senior Bowl. And again, I think when you look at the way that they want to attack the line of scrimmage, when you have Mekhi Becton and Milton Williams and Josh Sweat all getting ready to hit free agency, it only makes sense to continue to replenish the pipeline there, add another influx of youth to complement Nolan Smith and complement Mora Ojama and Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and the rest of the blue chip talent they got up front. I think the Eagles look to continue to do that. Were there some other players that I thought about? Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at the tight end position, it made sense for a few players there, but ultimately the line of scrimmage dwellers, they were the guys that really kind of stood out to me when it came to the best available players, especially when it got to round 2 and round 3 with JTT available late round 2, with Darius Alexander late in round 3. I think they were too good to pass up for the Eagles in the 5. I think the tight end position would be the one to keep an eye on, but hey, maybe that's someone that we'll be addressing here in later iterations of this mock draft, which, by the way, again, if you don't want to miss our future mock drafts, make sure you hit subscribe. We've got you covered with free recaps, free agency previews, those mock drafts. We're going to have a lot of draft content right here with our PHLY Eagles crew, including our draft show, our live draft show, draft weekend. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss any of our content leading up to the big weekend.